Let's see how to remove and to put back these brushes. So you will have these covers and a screw here. So it's on both sides. So basically to remove the brushes, just be careful because it has a spring. You just want to lift it. First, maybe take a look the way it sits inside this spring here. We just really lift it and just release it slowly because there is a spring. You don't want it to fly across the room. And now, first, when you put it back, you know this has a curve here, right? Only from one angle. From this angle it's flat, it's straight. From this side it's curved because it has to match the commutator round surface. So first we want to make sure to place this side with a cut. Actually it's to see just the length of the remaining brush. And by the way, if you have it this long, it's plenty enough actually. If you have it maybe this long, maybe you want to think about replacing it. The new ones are about this long, so there's enough meat. So this cut is to see the length, and this sits at the top, and you need to match the cut with the round surface. So this is the round surface, it's matching the cut, and you want to hold it like this. Hold it with your thumbnail like this, and with your thumbnail really keep it inside. Don't let go here at all time. And now we want to go to the inserting point, and this spring depends how you just have the wires. It will sit maybe up or down, but it's very important if you want to manage to insert it, keep it like this and press towards this side, because you want to really press it against the plastic piece. That is really important. Left hand, it's keeping it like this. And also notice there is a small plastic bump here. It's really annoying. You don't want it to bump this thing into it, so just careful. I want to give you first a detail. So this is the tube. I'm not having the brush itself. This is the tube. It goes in there. And this detail, it's important to notice because you will not see it. So on the right side here, on the right side, there is this plastic border. On the left side, there is also a plastic border much lower. And this is important. Notice how the piece it's basically channeled by these two borders. It doesn't reach here. Why? Because this actually is the place, I'm zooming in with the camera, is the place where you put the spring piece, and this is what's causing all the troubles. You see, if you just lower the piece like this, and you should lower it all the way at the rear as well, because sometimes it's at an angle. When you lower it, if you lower it all the way at the bottom and then press it against the left side, that rectangular the tube piece, this piece, will never be able to get in there. So if the metal spring sits like this, the tube with the brush will never ever get in there, no matter what you do. Look here, let this lift and then press it against the left side, and sitting on the bottom bump, the one that appears kind of whitish, this is really just another bump here. And it's so small, you are watching a zoom in image, but it's so small you will never even see it. You will not notice it. And that's what's causing all the problems. So this spring piece must come at the top of the bottom channel, and just press it against like this, and then you free that channel for the tube to enter. So press like this, left hand, my finger is kind of inside, and I'm going to insert it at the outer limit here, and keep the cut place, or the, I don't know, the window top, and you just want it to insert it really right here at the very beginning. It's just where that lateral spring starts, but notice I'm inserting it at an angle because I don't want to bump into that plastic piece. So just kind of an angle like this. It's seated all the way at the bottom, all the way, and then you just move it and release the graphite piece. So it sits really at the bottom, and how much you need to push it inside, that you just want to keep it really all the way flat. So it's push it downwards so it stays in there, and just press it inside. It's let me try to find the angle. Here we go. Here outside we have this edge, and what we have to do is push it inside, push it inside until it goes past this edge, until it's aligned here. I'm trying to find an angle for you to see. So the end must align with this edge here, not with the outer one. I'll explain why. So push it until almost aligns with this line here. Now, two things. Make double check the metal piece does not come close to the commutator. This is commutator surface. Again, make sure you put the round surface of the graphite against the round surface of the commutator. Be very careful. You notice there is a small chip here. This graphite is extremely fragile. It's not like later brushes, which are made of different material. This graphite of the brush is exactly like a pencil pen tip. You know how easy to break those, so very careful how to handle it. And then you want to make sure this spring, the left one, sits all the way in there, and make sure again all this piece sits in there. This is another view if you want. I'll give you more tips, so make sure it's seated fully inside, and then you get that piece and it should match. And notice how the side cover, it's basically, you can even push that holder if you want, or tube, with the graphite brush. You can even push it to align here and just send the screw. Let me just give you some more tips if you want. So maybe some people would like to disassembly the unit. The way it goes, you need to obviously remove these two caps from side with screws. Remove first the brushes because you are going to lose them, and then same on the other side. And then we have two screws, and these screws actually hold into this stud, which is the same stud for the screw for the small covers here. So this stud is used by both sides, on both sides. So you remove, these are long screws, and then when you split the unit open, you need first, you will no longer have the brushes. You need to lift this, I call these springs. You need to lift them from there because you are going to toast this cover, and this spring has a wire and wants to stay inside. So if you just pull the cover like this, you are going to break the wires for this, which are connected to this spring. So you need to lift these springs, and there is a hole, you need to push them inside to free this cover. And the same goes when you put it back in place, and that's a more tricky part. When you put this cover back in place, you will need to kind of, before closing the cover, kind of push those springs to exit them by finger. Push with your finger to exit the springs through these holes and bring them here at the top. And when the cover is fully in place, then you place the springs into their groove. So it's like this. That's the tricky part. You need to kind of play with those wires. Inside, you can put a droplet of oil on the lower bush bearing. I recommend actually engine oil because it lasts longer. In synthetic engine oil, it's even better. To lubricate the bottom bearing, you don't need to disassemble anything except just remove one of the covers. So it has a flat screwdriver, one of the covers for the brushes. Then you have the rod. And then this is basically here, right here is the top of the bottom bearing sleeve. So the bearing sleeve goes from there to about there. You just put a tiny droplet of oil directly on the rod and then inside of it. And then just keep the motor standing upside like this. and maybe rotate it a little bit and just wait for the droplet of oil to get inside that sleeve. It will leak from the rod into the sleeve, but really make sure you put a tiny droplet. If you put too much, what will happen is when it's going to spin, it's going to get oil on the commutator, on that copper shiny surface, and will prevent proper electrical contact, may even cause a coat of burnt oil, and that's going to slow down the motor. So just a tiny amount of oil is plenty enough for it to leak, but give it time, keep it standing the motor for a couple of hours so the oil gets into that sleeve. Top, there is a top bearing as well. This one it's ball bearing actually, and forget it, don't try to remove anything here. It's impossible to remove unless you are really skilled. What you want is to keep this vertical and put a drop of oil. I'll try to point to you at this. Let's see if you see clearly this split here. This is where you want to put a drop of oil, just at the tip of my screwdriver. Okay, obviously all around any place, but one drop should be plenty enough. Then keep it like this for a couple of hours so the oil gets inside. You also have a small cover inside, which I did not put back because this cover was rubbing against the commutator. So basically this is kind of to protect the wire from touching the case. Normally just look carefully, it should be a gap in there. But again, it was rubbing, and this gear was not spinning easily. And also, when you put back the cover, you will notice there's one important part here, right here at this split. You have these two contacts, and there's this metal piece. In between the piece and the top of the two contacts, there is kind of a rectangular insulating black piece. Be sure to place it correctly back in place. You notice this is closing, it's touching, so that piece kind of sits here at the top. Okay, inside it will drop when you remove it, split the case. Also, when you put back the case, my last tip is when you get everything back together, you put the screws. You need to slide these studs. They are hexagonal, so they just slide inside, and then you screw this top screw into it. These are a flat screwdriver. When you are just about to do the last turn to tighten them to, just kind of wiggle the two cases, the two halves, wiggle them together, because their position, relative position, is not very fixed. It can be shifted, and if it's shifted and you tighten the screws, when you turn the gear here, you will notice it doesn't spin freely easily. And this is before placing back the brushes. So when you close the cases back in place, before you put the two brushes in place, after you tighten the screws fully, just turn the gear by hand. It should really be very smooth to turn, very smooth. If it feels it's kind of rubbing a bit, then the two cases are not properly aligned. So you want to kind of find the matching way. And again, this plastic piece was also rubbing, so your choice to put it back or not. And by the way, I did see you want to clean the commutator. There are videos, so you want to make sure this surface is very smooth. And I use a fine grit, a sandpaper, very fine. You need to get at least 800 grit and 100 or more. It has to be very smooth. And I suggest you go like this to smoothen if there are grooves. And I've seen people trying to smoothen also the surface on the brushes. I disagree, because these brushes, again, the graphite, it's so brittle. You see what's happening? Perhaps you see on this paper. It's really going to just remove material very easily. So I don't recommend, and I don't recommend trying to make the surface of the brush flat. It has to be curved. Otherwise, you won't have good speed, at least for a couple of, I don't know, 1 hour or 2 hour of motor operation. Maybe one last tip when you put the two cases together. So I did mention you need to drive these springs to bring them through this hole out here, but also you have a little bit of trouble to these things are going to be attached here on this half. So when you get the black cover back in place, you will need to kind of drive these two pins into their holes. It's not difficult, but you need to pay attention so you don't don't crush the two wires for these two pins, and you need to kind of position them by yourself. Don't think they are going to slide in place by themselves. Okay, just careful with this. And again, I think from what I understand, the big problem is this top bearing, which gets loose, gets wear on it. I don't think it's really easy to replace. My suggestion is if you feel like the gear here it's rough, you may want to just get another unit from eBay, try to find a seller which tells you it turns smooth, and just replace the entire unit. Don't bother trying to open it. And finally, put a tiny bit, actually smear a very fine film of grease on this gear, which comes in contact with the red nylon gear. Just a tiny bit of grease so it doesn't spray inside too much, so it doesn't smell or just get grease inside your machine. And by the way, one last thing, this is the very last thing. I think it doesn't matter the polarity for this motor, so you can reverse the wires, put them reverse, it doesn't matter, so don't bother. Maybe take a picture if you want before disassembling, but someone said it doesn't matter. I'm going to test this as well. The polarity, that is that. If you inverse the wires, it shouldn't be a problem. Should not be a problem. To give you an idea, I did remove the two brushes, and look how easy the motor is spinning when it's in good condition. So I'm going just to give it a kick. Notice the free spin. Now it's spinning more because it's on the side. If you keep it upside, it's going to spin less, but still. Look here, a small screw. So it goes several turns, 5, 6, 7 turns by itself. And I did put a bit of oil at the top and the lower bushings, bearings.